Welcome back to WHIP, Philadelphia's #1 college radio station. On the line with us, we have a phenomenal guest today. And frankly, for me to give him a proper introduction, we would be here for over 10 minutes, but I'll keep it brief. He is a basketball historian, he's a giver, and he's a member of the Naismith Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. His name is Sonny Hill, and he's kind enough to give us a few minutes. Sonny, how you doing?
Oh, just great. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you so much. We're happy to have you. Now, let's jump right in. We're having you on the show to talk about Wilt Chamberlain. And 2 days ago, 54 years ago, as a member of the Philadelphia Warriors, he scored 100 points. Now, that's obviously an enormous record. What does it mean for someone to score 100 points in 1962?
First off, you can't describe it because it's impossible to do. And for him to be able to do what he did in the era that he did it, it would be even more astonishing only because the style of play when Wilt was playing, it was a very physical style of play. So it wasn't like in this era where you can't touch players and players have what we call freedom of movement. It was a situation where players were very, very physical against one another. And Wilt, throughout his career, was the most physical player in terms of how people played against him.
Now, in an era that's so physical, like you mentioned, this guy was truly an anomaly, just to grasp how great he was. He had 12 consecutive seasons with over 20-plus rebounds, including a career-high 27 in 27-plus in 62, excuse me. He averaged 50.4 points in, again, same year, 62. And this is before they had the three-point line, by the way. And I think the most astonishing stat of all, in that same year, 62, he averaged 48.5 minutes a game. That's more than the game actually allows. Now, you witnessed him, obviously. What was it like to witness this Iron Man in such a physical era?
I think you used a very good terminology, Iron Man, because Wilt thought of himself in that manner. First and foremost, Wilt was a tremendous athlete. He wasn't this slow guy running up and down the floor. Wilt was a guy that enjoyed being an athlete. In fact, he was on the track team both at Overbrook High School and also at Kansas University. So he was a world-class athlete in every phase of it. So he wasn't just a basketball guy. He was an athlete extraordinaire.
He was an athlete extraordinaire. Now, let's switch gears real fast. He's obviously an athlete extraordinaire, but what was your relationship with Wilt?
Well, we grew up knowing one another since we were about 12 years old. We first met one another playing in the old Church Baptist Basketball League back in the late 40s and the early 50s. And we maintained our relationship from that point until he passed away. He played with a church in West Philadelphia, and I played with a church in North Philadelphia, Zion Baptist Church. But that was a great time because we had people who cared about us. They were there for all the right reasons, and it was a great time for us to be mentored, which wasn't a word we used back in those days. We just had great adults who took pride in helping young people.
Now, you're a guy who obviously takes pride in helping young people. You have the Sonny Hill Community Basketball League. We'll get into that later. We're talking with Sonny Hill, by the way. You started another basketball league. By the way, for the listeners out there, you may have heard of the NBA Summer League. Well, we're actually speaking with the man who founded the original idea behind it. Sonny, can you tell us a little bit about the Baker League, which actually took place right down the street in McGonigal Hall?
Well, we started that program in 1960. And the reason that I thought about coming up with the league was because we would play all the time against one another. So we had players that came from North Philadelphia, players that came from West Philadelphia, players that came from South Philadelphia, and other areas. So I thought of the idea that why wouldn't we compete on a regular basis by having a summer league? And that's when we came up with the idea of having summer professional basketball during that era, which was a time that would be very, very good in terms of what was going on with our young people.
Now, did Wilt Chamberlain ever play in that league?
Yeah, Wilt was a part of why we started the league. Wilt Chamberlain, Hal Lear, who was a great player at Temple University, Guy Rogers, another great player from Temple University, Ray Chink Scott, who went on to have an outstanding career in the NBA with the Detroit Pistons, became the first black coach in all of sports history to be Coach of the Year. So we had so many great players that wanted to play and did play on a regular basis. So I thought of the idea of organizing teams from each area. The North Philadelphia team, you had a West Philadelphia team, South Philadelphia team,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had other teams as well.
Now, you mentioned Hal Lear, among others, former Temple basketball players. What's your favorite, from what you can remember, what's your favorite Temple-related Baker League moment, player-wise, obviously?
Well, I lived in North Philadelphia, so I grew up at 16th and Dolphin, and I was not that far from Temple University, which is right on Broad Street, and Cecil B. Moore back then was Columbia Avenue. And I was mentored and raised by Guy Rogers. Guy Rogers is the greatest player ever in the Big Five. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he's certainly the greatest Temple basketball player. So I used to go up to Temple University, and I was involved with that when they had South Hall, is where Coach Harry Litwack had his team, and they would practice. So my relationship and my interaction with Temple started back in those days.
That's wild. Now let's bring this back to Wilt. Again, we're talking with Sonny Hill, member of the Naismith Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, basketball historian. This is the guy you talk to when you need to know about Philadelphia hoops. Now, many have regarded the 1967 Sixers team, obviously Wilt Chamberlain was a member of that team, as the greatest of all time. Can you validate that argument?
Yeah, in that era, when you put that team together, it won 3 consecutive conference championships. Unfortunately, only won that one world championship. One year they were up 3-1 over the Boston Celtics, and Billy Cunningham, who was not a starter, but he was a guy that came off the bench as a sub, and he broke his hand and was not able to play, and that weakened the team, and the Boston Celtics came back to beat them. But the historians who have watched this league over many, many years consider that one of the greatest teams of all time. Had a tremendous front line of Luke Jackson, 6'10", weighed over 260 pounds. You had Chet Walker, who's a Hall of Famer, playing the other forward. You had Hal Greer, not Lear, but Hal Greer, Hall of Famer, playing one guard. And Wally Jones, Philadelphia's own Overbrook High School, Villanova University, playing the other guard. And in the middle was the big fella, Wilt Chamberlain. And coming off the bench as instant offense was Billy Cunningham.
Quite the squad, my goodness. That's unreal. That team was 68-13. According to the man himself, one the best of their time. Now, Wilt Chamberlain obviously played for the Sixers. He also played for the Philadelphia Warriors, who are now in Golden State. And there's some guy over there named Steph Curry, who I'm sure all of you have heard of. He is absolutely lighting things up. Now, some are jumping to some conclusions here and regarding him as the greatest of all time. Now, the player that we have discussed in this phone call, as we also discussed before the phone call, trumps him beyond belief. Why do you feel that is?
Well, all you have to look at is from the beginning, when Wilt came into the league in 1959-60, the NBA wasn't really on the sports map to a large degree. So Wilt put NBA basketball on the big map. In fact, when you talk to the players of his era, they genuflect when you think about Wilt's name because he made it big time. He made it possible for guys to be able to make money. I'll give you an example. In 1959-60, Wilt's rookie year, he came into the league making over $75,000. There was only 3 players in the league that was making $20,000. Bob Cousy, Bob Pettit,
Wow,
and Elgin Baylor. So he, in turn, helped the league to grow. Attendance went up over 25-30%. And it became popular for the NBA to be known not only in America, because Wilt was a world-renowned athlete who was recognized all over the world. The people outside the United States were able to identify with Wilt in the NBA. So when you talk about what he was able to do, forget the records.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand that what he did by putting the NBA and helping the NBA to be where it is today. And if you talk to some of the guys back in the day, they will all do the same thing, and they'll say, Wilt made the league.
Wow. Now, obviously, he had a profound impact on the NBA and growing the league. Now, what would you say his impact was on the city of Philadelphia?
He always would let everybody know that he was from Philadelphia. If you look at any time that Wilt would be making a comment and they would ask him a question about where he is from, he would light up. He says, I'm from Philadelphia. is heroes back in the day, and we had heroes back in the day from within our own communities. Paul Arizin was one of his heroes. Tom Gola was one of his heroes. Also, the Guy Rogers was one of his heroes. So he had all these individuals who were guys that he looked up to and was able to touch him along the way and help him to become the great athlete that he became.
Speaking of looking up to people, Sonny, I look up to you very much. And it's not just because of your exceptional basketball acumen. It's because of what you do for the community. Not everybody knows about, particularly my peers, the Sonny Hill Basketball League. Can you give us the elevator pitch of what you do for the community?
Well, I started that in 1968, and I really started it because we had a thing called gang warfare back in the day. And gang warfare was about turfs. So if you lived in South Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, Germantown, and somebody stopped you and said, where you from? And you say, well, I'm from not your area, but I'm from North Philadelphia. I'm in South Philadelphia. And they say, well, you have no business down here. Then, you might get into a fight, or they might chase you. But what happened was, by me having a reputation as a basketball player, people knew who I was, that I decided to put a basketball league together to be able to cross and move beyond these turfs. And by putting it together, it allowed me to be able to touch young people for all the right reasons, not just for basketball, but to be able to touch young people and mold them into better human beings by using basketball as a vehicle. So one of the proud things about what happened during that period, they could be coming from South Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, Germantown, wherever they be coming from. And the guys in North Philadelphia would stop them because we played a lot of our games at Temple University. And they asked you, where you going? And the guy says, I'm going to play in the Sonny Hill League. The guy said, you can walk. That's big time.
Yeah, that's big time. And today, the league still has its impact. It's profound. Some former Temple players, Mark Jackson, Aaron McKee, to name a couple. Now, Wilt Chamberlain is a Hall of Famer. Sonny, I want to ask you, what does it mean to you after your life of accomplishments and giving back to the community and just studying basketball and working so hard? What does it mean to you to be a member of the Hall of Fame?
Well, it's something that I never thought about, and particularly in the area that I was able to be put in. I'm in what they call the spirit of the game, which means a lot more to me than even being selected as a player. Spirit of the game meaning how much you've contributed to the game and how much of the spirit of the game that you've helped to develop. So when I was given this opportunity to be 2008 to be an induction into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, it was like, wow. And then the kind of love that I was able to get from the city, and also when I went to the Hall of Fame, I was fortunate enough that when I went up to speak, and I looked in the audience, I saw individuals that were a big part of who I am and what I was able to do. I saw the great Marcus Haynes from the Globetrotters, which is when I was growing up being a person of color. We looked at the Globetrotters as, boy, if we could ever play for the Globetrotters. And so I wanted to play for the Globetrotters, and Marcus Haynes was my favorite basketball player and my favorite human being. So I just took the opportunity to say, hey, it's because of a guy like Marcus Haynes. And then there was another gentleman by the name of Mr. Frank Washington, who was also there. Another gentleman by the name of Mr. Earl Lloyd. And I took the opportunity to say how great they were and what an inspiration to me, and they touched me along the way. And the last one was what I refer to as Mr. Baker League, and that's Earl the Pearl Monroe, because of what he did by coming back to the community at the time when he was such a big-time star, and the people just enjoyed when he came to Temple's McGonigal Hall and lit it up for 40, 50, or 60.
That's remarkable. That's a great story. Sonny, I want to thank you so much again for giving us a few minutes of your time here at WHIP, and I want to wish you the best, and have a great day.
Stay in touch.
Absolutely. Take care, Sonny.